Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. I'm Saeed Khan, and now that we are well into 2025 by a whole 10 days, let's get going with another week of very, very interesting news. We are met with, I think, Joel Sklar, who is adjusting the oxygen vent overhead cabin in whatever flight he's on. We've got attorney Bill Seikaly. We have labor and community activist Barb Ingalls, veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, and doing a little bit of house cleaning there on his screen, co-founder of Deadline Detroit, of course, Allan Lengel. Well, just to show you that this show is live and it is not pre-recorded earlier in the week, we have breaking news. Judge Juan Marchand in New York has issued his sentence of President-elect Donald Trump, he of the 34 felony convictions in the so-called hush money case. Judge Marchand has sentenced President-elect Trump to what is called unconditional discharge, which I think has a different meaning in nursing homes and hospitals. And this means no jail time, no probation, and no fine. So I'm going to go to the lawyers first. What are we to make of this from a legal standpoint? We'll get to the political and the cultural later.
He's a felon. That's the legal standpoint. He is now a felon.
Okay.
He's a convicted felon serving in office. The punishment may not fit the crime, but it's appropriate. And he will live with that stain until somebody takes it away, and God willing, nobody will. That's the legal impact.
Yeah, given the Supreme Court's recent opinion yesterday, I'm not so sure that's true. He only needs one more vote. But I agree with what Joel said, and I don't think Marchand had much of a choice here. There wasn't much he could have done other than this, because and I don't know if any of you listened to. They had a recording of the sentencing, which I had an opportunity to listen to when I was in the car, and he said as much. He said you were convicted not as a president or former president, but as a regular citizen. But I acknowledge the fact you have been, the people have chosen you as the next president, and you have the protections granted to you by the Constitution. Didn't have much of a choice, but I thought he spoke very eloquently about the need to have the conviction.
But the people of the state of New York, in which this case was heard, not a federal case, voted for his opponent, both in the popular vote and in the electoral vote. So did the people really speak for him as the president?
Well, as Marchand pointed out, it's not the person that gets the protection. It's the person in the office that gets the protection. And he had to acknowledge the fact that in 10 days, he's going to be there. Look, would I have enjoyed it if he would have at least given him a day in prison? Yeah, but I think that would have been more of a political move than, in fact, a move impacting the law. But
so, are you saying a day in Mara Epstein at Rikers Island? Okay, Allan.
I would have liked to have seen him give him some kind of even a month and suspended, pending that he doesn't get any more trouble or whatever. But I think it's miraculous that we got this done, that it stood there, because when you look at it, I mean, he threw his lawyers threw everything at the wall trying to derail this sentencing. And the fact that the Supreme Court should have been 9-0 decision, it was 5-4, which is just so insane.
Terrifying.
From a legal point of view, from somebody who practices law and tries to maintain the respect for the system, that was disgusting. Combined with him actually having a phone conference with Sam Alito about some employee issue.
That's absurd.
I'm astounded. Anybody who would have engaged in such a conversation, the judge would have been taken off the bench, certainly taken off the case, and the attorney probably would have been disbarred for such conduct. That conversation with Alito says more about the Supreme Court's lack of ethics than anything I've seen in a long time. It makes Thomas look like he might have more ethics than Alito. Damning was being praised.
Nancy.
I don't really have anything to add to that. I was thinking, I was counting on my fingers through the four where it was Gorsuch,
Kavanaugh, Alito, Thomas.
Kavanaugh.
Amy Coney
It's easier
Barrett
it's easier
Justice
to count
Roberts.
and
Barrett.
Amy Coney Biden as the people who didn't
Right.
do.
So
by the
they,
way,
exactly. Plus the other, all right.
By the way, Barrett is also no relation to either the Ryan O'Neal or Ray Milland characters from Love Story, even though that was a Barrett family. Barb.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say, it's hard for people to believe in the law, to believe in justice when we see that the highest people in the land getting away with this kind of stuff. And I know that if you know exactly what's going on, he didn't exactly get away with it. He's a felon and all those things. But what people in this country are going to see is him dance off again, screaming about his innocence and not paying up any kind of a price for it. I was a kid when Richard Nixon danced away from, and I actually think that if Nixon had gone to jail, we'd live in a different country, because it did prove that it would have proved that no one's above the law. But Trump's above the law. It's official. Mm-hmm. He's above the law. He's not going to pay for any of his crimes, multiple crimes, more than 34 crimes. He's probably never going to pay E. Jean Carroll a single red cent. He hasn't got that kind of money anyways. But I mean, it's really, I knew he was never going to go to jail, but it doesn't make me feel any better right now.
So I mean, you've got the case of Nixon, where Ford pardons him. You've got the fact that Clinton suborned perjury and didn't really face any liability or any recrimination for it. I mean, is this just really who we are as a republic?
Yes.
Yeah.
This has been easy answers to unnecessarily complicated questions for today. Yes, this is who we are now. I mean, I don't know. I saw another news item this week that kind of ties into this obliquely, and that is that Amazon movie studios, is going to be paying Melania Trump $40 million for her participation in this documentary that they're making about her totally interesting life. Okay, $40 million. The next closest bid was from Disney, and it was for $14 million. Wow. This is, in any sane universe, a bribe that Amazon is paying to the Trump organization to be left alone by, whatever they're afraid of happening to them. And it blows my mind. I mean, I was mentioning this in a group text, and somebody said, remember when you could get kicked out of Congress for abusing the franking privilege? We're all old enough to remember that, and it's like, we are now in an era of lawlessness. There's no more rule of law, at least not for certain very wealthy people. And it's appalling. I mean, this is who we are now, though. This is half the country voted for this.
Well, the first Trump administration term showed that the emoluments clause of the Constitution is about as valuable as the first clause of the Second Amendment. Right. It's just not even paid attention to. So, right. I mean, I think that's where we were. And I guess for those kids who are looking to go to law school and take a course in constitutional law, I guess it's going to be a shorter course for you, because a lot of things are simply being ignored now. So you've got that to go for. But Alan.
I was just going to say, this is an aside, that I found it heartening that Amy Coney Barrett, being a Detroiter, someone with the name Coney in their name, voted the right way.
Okay,
you have a little more faith than I, Alan.
Yes.
Because she voted, the only thing she voted the right way on was not stopping the sentencing that she knew would not include any jail time. We'll see how she ultimately rules, because the issue of the conviction itself will be back before the United States Supreme Court.
Right, true.
And
by the way, so before after I said that, I should have went.
You saw
Someone got new sound effects for Hanukkah this year.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Trump spawn, Judge Eileen Cannon, a Trump appointee down in Florida, has blocked the release of now former special counsel Jack Smith's report on a variety of Trump violations. Again, here we now have a judicial, arguably, miscarriage that's happening, and with complete impunity. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's with complete impunity. Democracy is based on transparency, so we believe, and there's nothing transparent here. We paid for that report. I paid for it. We all paid for it. We're entitled to see the results, the conclusions, and the summaries. We're entitled to that. We own that. It's not the president's. It's ours. And we should see exactly what Jack Smith found. We should know what he found. We should know his conclusions and his recommendations. They should not be hid. The fact that they are should worry all of us, because God knows what's really being hid. It's terrifying. So I think, this judge, she may be the next fucking Supreme Court appointee for all we know, knowing Trump and his fealty. It's just, to give disrespect to the judiciary, this is the example of just favoritism and bias and no real reflection on what the law is or the purpose or the policy behind it.
it'll be interesting to see if the Court of Appeals acts quickly enough to do anything about this. They should. This should not take a long time. I think, Cannon's decision's interesting for a bunch of reasons. One, she said that the entire special prosecutor law is unconstitutional. Well, if it's unconstitutional, what gives her authority to block the report? Let's not ask for too much consistency. But what I find most amazing is that she blocked a report that arguably she doesn't have any jurisdiction over, because much of the report didn't deal with the Mar-a-Lago documents case, which is in front of her, but with the with the attempt to support the insurrection. That issue is just not before her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you mean the events around the Day of Love, Bill?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, but I mean, so this then comes
Took me back to 1968 when it occurred.
Hey, the summer of love was 67. So I think I think your parents held you back for a year there.
Bill, you're just asking for that picture to be put up.
No.
Yeah.
Talk about a rim shot, but
Yes.
but again, doesn't this come back to what we can do on our Monday or Friday morning armchair quarterbacking, that Jack Smith bringing the case in Florida as opposed to in the District of Columbia? This whole idea about venue shopping and thinking that this would be better. He could have clearly gotten personal jurisdiction over Trump in D.C. I think at the time he still owned the hotel over there at the old post office.
He's trying to get it back now.
He's
He
trying
could
to
have
get
gotten
it back.
jurisdiction because the acts occurred there.
Yeah.
It was just a tactical mistake.
As I recall, I think Steve laid out an argument and basically said Jack Smith was doing the right thing, and he knew that there was he was going by the book, and he could have he just drew a short straw with this terrible judge. So,
ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to see on the show the level of camaraderie that we have, that despite the fact that Steve's not on the show, Nancy is there to do some fish mansplaining. So
You've had that one in your pocket for a while, trying to get Fishman's.
No.
You know,
You honestly think I'm like George Costanza, that I have the moves written on my arm?
Right.
Come on. How dare you?
You know, I also have to say, because we spent this week talking and thinking a lot about Jimmy Carter. And I remember when Carter became president, he put his businesses in a blind trust. He put his peanut operation, he put all these businesses that he had a finger in a blind trust, meaning that somebody else was running it. He had absolutely no input. And it was seen as an act of extremely ethical behavior, you know, and when Trump was elected in 2016, I mean, he acted appalled that anybody would even suggest that. In fact, as I recall from writing for the New York Times, he even thought that he could go back to Trump Tower on the weekends. He didn't even intend to live full time in the White House. I mean, so, you know, once again, that scene yesterday of all of the, you know, the former President's Club, or what Stephen Colbert calls the Marvel Presidential Universe, you know, sitting there and him, that orange piece of shit on the end there with his horrible wife. I mean, it just shows you how far we've gone or how far we've slipped. And I'm becoming very pessimistic about our ability to pull out of it. I don't think it'll happen in my lifetime anyway.
Well, he was seemingly having a cordial conversation in the midst of the memorial with that person born in Kenya, apparently. Well,
I mean, you know, and once again, I saw that frame, like, you know, pulled out and memed all over the right wing, you know, social media sphere yesterday. Look, they can be cordial with each other. Why can't you be cordial with, you know, your colleagues who voted for Trump? And it's like one frame of a polite man dealing with a fucking boor. You know, and not, I mean, what was he supposed to do? Just like hold up his hand and you know, don't talk to me, asshole. Right. I mean, he was being doing what people do all the time, which is making the best of a bad situation.
The right doesn't have any trouble with that. I mean, you'll notice that that one of the husband of a senator who was being sworn in, or a member of the House being sworn in by Harris, refused to shake Harris's hand.
Alan, I think we have video, Alan.
We have, yes, we do. Let me find that.
Well, folks, if you want to see classless, despicable, shameful, just trifling as hell, this is what took place on Friday.
No. It's okay. I won't bite. We're gonna bite. Don't worry. Okay. Okay. Do you solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States? Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Jesus.
Trifling. I love that expression, trifling. That's great. Anyway.
What the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, and were you saying before we went on the air, Alan, that some people were saying that he actually walks with a cane, and so with the Bible in one hand and the cane in the other, he was unable to?
Yes, somebody.
But you know, there was no smile. There was no excuse me. I can't. I'm sorry. My hands are full. I mean, it was a snub. That was a snub in any language.
But Nancy, just to be fair here, there are other people who don't shake hands, including the villain in the Bond movie Spy Who Loved Me, Stromberg. So there is precedent that Kurt Jürgens didn't shake hands. I had to go back
to germ freak like our incoming president.
I had to go back to 1977 for that. Yeah, Bill.
I want to go back to this comparison that Nancy started with regarding Jimmy Carter, and Donald Trump. I was really offended by some things I saw in the media, social media especially, in which the right came out and said, hey, come on, let's admit it. Carter was the worst president of our time, and they really went after him. In fact, history has shown he was not. He faced some of the most difficult problems of our times. Mm-hmm. He, most of which weren't his doing. He did a terrible job at the debate with Reagan. Now, it is interesting that history has shown that Reagan happened to have a copy of Carter's debate book with him, which, one might wonder how that happened, but okay. We also know that Reagan did everything he could to make sure that the hostages were not released until after the election.
Right.
Think about this. And there's no way to look at Jimmy Carter and not realize, no matter who we've elected as president of the United States, he was the most moral man and one of the finest men to ever hold that office. We talk about Washington chopping down the cherry tree and he couldn't tell a lie. Washington couldn't hold a candle to Jimmy Carter in terms of real personal morality. Right. And we should be celebrating that. We should all, no matter what our political alliances are, we should all be proud of that. And it's a shame that we're not.
I think there should be criminal charges for instances like that, where Reagan interferes with the release of the hostages, where Nixon interfered with the peace talks in Vietnam for political reasons, and Trump with the border, killing the bill on the border and stuff like that. I mean, really impediments to there should be some kind of obstruction type of.
Did you hear this?
Ambition.
We should be smart enough not to elect people like that.
Yeah,
right. Ambition supersedes everything else.
Did you see the story in the Times? I think it broke last night that they're looking for a disease that they can use as a pretext to shut down the border. They can't bring COVID back, but they're looking for a disease that they
could be the bird flu that's coming out. There's going to be opportunities to point to things that are factual to try to bootstrap whatever the hell you want.
Yeah,
it's not enough to have brown skin breaking out all over the border, right?
Right. Yeah.
Actually, Mexico ought to close their border, citing Trumpitis.
You mean the Gulf of America?
So what is the opposite of affluenza? Because I think that's going to be the disease that they have. Well, speaking of the Gulf of America, it seems as though President-elect Trump had a very interesting press conference in which he divulged his renaming plans. It kind of reminded me of that scene in Superman where Lex Luthor is like coming up with new names for the west coast of California: Costa del Lex, Lutherville, Marina del Lex, and then of course Otis has Otisburg. But some of the highlights were renaming plans, bringing hell to Hamas, because it is Eden there right now, and of course other musings. And I think, Alan, we do have video on this as well.
On which we've got
on the Trump presser.
Oh, okay.
For instance, he was asked about pardoning the January 6th rioters, and he came up with an unexpected new theory about who was responsible.
I guess 24 or 28 people came now from the FBI. That came out very quietly. Nobody reported it, but they had people in some form related to the FBI. They had 4 or 5 people that were strongly related to the FBI. We have to find out about that. We have to find out about Hezbollah.
Hezbollah? Trump went on.
We have to find out about who exactly was in that whole thing, because people that did some bad things were not prosecuted.
Yeah, I'm looking at one right now.
Wow. Yeah. So
we have another pardon video. It's a very short one.
In a new interview with USA Today, President Biden confirmed that he is considering preemptive pardons for President-elect Trump's political enemies, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney, and the Wind.
So here's the question, to piggyback on another story we're going to talk about. President-elect Trump has also indicated that he would like to acquire Greenland, reacquire the Panama Canal. Do you think, since he sent Scion-in-Chief Donald Trump Jr. Up to Greenland on a recce, do you think then that Greenland will soon be renamed Whiteland?
Doubt it. But it's insane. Isn't that crazy? Just to
Honky Land would be more appropriate.
Okay. All right.
Crazy.
By the way, the other conspiracy theory is that Greenland is being purchased to relocate Palestinians. So that somehow the other has actually gone out
If
there.
anybody thinks that Trump's going to allow Palestinians into North America, we're nuts.
No, they want to send them to Rwanda, as I understand, don't they? I mean, wasn't that was like that was part of the part of the deal? Okay, we'll resettle you. There's some nice land in Africa.
So what to make other than the fact that Con Sonar Crazy Ivan, again, to borrow from Hunt for Red October, these cannot possibly be the musings of just a quirky, crazy person. Is there a method to the madness of what is going on here? Is this about NATO? Is this about the fact that, ironically, because of climate change, we need to re-examine shipping routes in the Arctic Circle? Bill?
I think two things could be true at the same time. One, it could be the rantings of a madman. I don't put that past it, but I think that there's more to it than that. I think that there's a good argument to be made that this is a great diversion. You know, nobody seems to be talking about is his appointees. What the hell is going on? How are we not laser focused on some of these crazy selections that he's made to the cabinet?
Well, but you're right. It's sleight of hand. It's like, look at this hand, and then with my other hand, I'm picking your pocket. I think, yeah.
Right. Let crazy old Trump talk in front of the cameras and babble on and on and on and on. And in the meantime, Musk and Vance and all of those people are down there, Peter Thiel and all those folks setting everything up to just take it all.
Yeah.
And I read Heather Cox Richardson every day. I think that she publishes just such a smart breakdown of the news. And she pointed, and it's like, it's chilling when you think about it, because anybody that I really do not believe, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but that orange piece of shit is not in charge of anything.
I agree.
I think he's in charge of what he wants to be in charge of. That's my big concern. I think that he's not very interested in most of these issues. If it doesn't directly impact or favor him or hold him up to being exalted, he's not particularly interested in. So he doesn't have any problem shipping that off to Musk and others. But I think he's very interested in what impacts him. I think he's very interested in having the stature and the power and that kind of stuff. But the rest of it, the day-to-day stuff that really impacts the rest of us, the stuff.
So Bill, there's a real-time parallel to that, and that's happening in India, where you have Narendra Modi, who was a chaiwala, he was a tea maker, who in what has to be seen as another incarnation of the movie Being There, here you have him coming in with a series or a legion of oligarchs and billionaires, technocrats all, who have really propped him up, and under the guise of a kind of extremist Hindu nationalism, created the bread and circuses for the population to then find other people to hate. And then, of course, he's got a willing media, which it seems as though we're lurching into that area here. So it seems as though there's a mirror occurring. Allan?
I think his greatest joy is campaigning. He loved the campaign he more than the job itself. I mean, even when he spoke at the Detroit Economic Club in October, I was there, and they played that "It's great to be an American." I mean, it went on for it's a economic club.
It's entertainment. He's an entertainer.
He stood there
for
that's what he is,
twirling around and displaying himself. Forgetting it wasn't a rally. I mean, the guy is delusional. He loves the campaign. He doesn't love.
Well, you remember when right after he was elected the first time, he was like, he tried to figure out a way to have more rallies, and they did. I mean, they would have, because that makes him happy. He's like a toddler, it's like, how can we distract him from whatever he's fixated on? So that, then he so they had some rallies, and I don't know what they called them. I mean, they were just, idiots join in an arena and cheer and listen to YMCA. I mean, it's What do you call something like
I want to caution. I want to caution against it. Look, it's my inclination to say this idiot and
I know
and stuff. I want to caution you against that. Remember that someone who wrote one of the books during the first term talked about the fact that he had Mein Kampf next to his bed, and that was one of the few books that he allegedly read. And if you read Mein Kampf and you watch what Trump does, these rallies are directly related to that kind of mentality.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that what he really enjoys, Alan, is the people worshiping him.
Adoration.
And it sets up this extreme turn to the right wing. I mean, Zuckerberg eliminates fact checking, not like it was a great job that they were doing anyhow, but it eliminates fact checking on Facebook. They're all donating millions to his inauguration. Are they going to be handing out $100 bills at his inauguration? Because they've got enough money to do that at this point.
Well, if they do, it'll probably have his face on it. But I want to.
I think that's on the $3 bill.
But Bill, I want to ask you then. You mentioned Mark Zuckerberg with Meta. Not only does he give $1 million to the inauguration fund, but also, as you just said, making a policy decision for Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, I'm assuming, to pull the fact checkers, to go to something I guess they're calling now community. I don't think it's policing. Community node.
Community standards.
And following in the footsteps of Elon Musk, who has, of course, very notoriously lifted all the circuit breakers onto X under the guise of free speech. Alan.
The whole process with Facebook or Meta or whatever was so poor that I would post stories that were in the news and the free press. I'd either aggregate or do original stories from press releases, and they would be taken down by Meta, and I'd get saying it's a violation of community standard, and I had no clue. Maybe the word sometimes Jew was in the headline or whatever, but it was a totally straight, legitimate stories, and I would challenge it. 3-4 days later, after they're already taking it down, then they'd say, okay. But it was such a poor process, and I don't know if it was done by
I think
AI or actual people pulling it out. But some of the stories I was so puzzled by the ones.
Mostly AI, because it's like, if you've ever tried to get anything out of Facebook, you never, ever, ever deal with a human being. You only deal with, you fill out a form, you click a box, and that's it. And I'm convinced that most of it is determined by AI. Jew is in the headline. Whoop, we're getting rid of that thing. But the revelation to me was Facebook has fact checkers. I mean, ever since the election, the first election, the 2016 election, they've downplayed. I mean, their algorithm really limits any kind of news story. I mean, you'll notice now that the news and free press, they will take a screenshot of a headline and make that the post, the photo, and then put the link to the story in the comments, because otherwise it gets put back in the closet somewhere.
I think the algorithm is two things. I think it's the content, and I think it honestly is the name of the person. I mean, I had a cat video banned, but the cat had a backpack strapped to it. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe
I'm not sure what the bigger story there is, that it got banned or that you post cat videos.
I got punished for 3 months. I was not allowed to post on my page for 3 months.
Wow.
On Facebook. I was so proud, but it was because I made fun of white men.
Really?
Oh, I thought Barb,
it's an easy target.
I thought it's because you picked Blur over Oasis, because that would get you banned. Alan, let's go to a quick commercial.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
So, taking an inversion from Jimmy Stewart, it looks like Mr. Musk is going to Europe. Elon Musk, I know, Bill, I'm sorry. It's just all these movies that if Fishman was here, he'd know what we're talking about. But
I know what you're talking about. I'm a big Jimmy Stewart fan. I just thought that was a stretch.
that was a stretch. But Elon Musk now seems to be wielding his what would we call it, SD energy in many different areas, courting actively and promoting both on platform as well as in his own special ways far right movements, including AfD in Germany, including the far right in France, which just suffered a loss of their founder Jean-Marie Le Pen left this mortal coil. But also going after the Reform Party in England, and in fact throwing under the bus the person who still is the leader of the party, Nigel Farage, over there. Is this just an overinflated ego of king-making, or is there something more nefarious? Joel?
There's a lot more nefarious. You know, Elon Musk has privatized former governmental functions. NASA is basically, you know, SpaceX now.
Yeah.
He's more than a kingmaker. He fancies himself as the emperor of the world, who knows everything. He's a genius. He's brilliant. Who can ever doubt Elon Musk? He's a fucking guy, may have done some great stuff, but it doesn't make him anything more than what he is, which is just another guy who did a great job in one thing. I don't think
hired people to do great stuff.
Right, or relied on the right people and hooked his, you know, wagon to them, whatever it may be. But to give this guy some sense, some idea, or that we should give him some credence that he knows what the fuck he's talking about when it comes to policy and to human beings and labor and people like us and people who we work with, that's an absurdity. And his influence is way greater than what he is, substantively or otherwise. It's terrifying because oligarchs, again, are running the world. And that's what we're seeing.
I mean, to say the least, I mean, not to say the least, I mean, his cars catch on fire. Nancy.
I am shocked. First of all, I am shocked to hear this coming from a South African, a white South African. So, you know, I mean,
I never saw it coming.
But yeah, never saw it coming. But just a minor thing here. As a female person, I have to say I am totally squicked out by his weird emphasis on the power of his sperm. Apparently he has now 11 children that we know of, couple by a girlfriend, couple by his ex-wife. But he has also like made his baby batter available to any woman who he deems worthy of, you know, being the mother to his spawn. And it's really gross. He has like twins or something by some SpaceX employee or Tesla employee. It's just like, ooh, there's nothing that is more offensive to me and more Nazi-like to me than this emphasis on genetics. You know, you know, that is the base layer of Nazism. And, you know, for him to think that he's so fucking special that he'll like, you know, give a shot to any woman who's willing to take it is just gross.
You know, Nancy, I think your argument would have a little bit more credence if you included Nick Cannon in the conversation.
Yeah.
But you know, because that's 15 with 9 different women. So, you know, we're all about the Fairness Act here. Allan.
Right.
I think it was Jon Stewart, and I could be wrong, but I think it was Jon Stewart who said a message to Elon Musk: "There's no sperm shortage in America."
You know, I ran across a Reddit thread about South African expats, and there were a lot of Australians on there, and they were saying they refer to South Africans as Saffies. You know, Australians have the greatest slang, but they were saying that a lot of them emigrated after the fall of apartheid. A lot of them emigrated to Australia, and they were saying, you know, the things that come out of their mouths, it's just, I mean, it's like racism it isn't even something they learn. It's like something that's
just genetic. Are you asking genetic?
There you go.
I want to go back to Saeed's original question. I think that, like Trump, you can't underestimate this stuff. He has turned to the right because the right wing is all about power in the hands of a few to control the many. And this is his opportunity with Trump in office to try and grab as much of it as he can. He happens to be the richest man in the world. His ability to get to these levers to control things is terrifying. And if we as common people don't do something about it, he's going to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot underestimate this stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't know if he played much of a role in this, but certainly I'm sure he's got his eyes focused on who might be the next leader of this country. Justin Trudeau, after a decade in office as prime minister in Ottawa, has announced that he will be stepping down as Canada's prime minister. He is just waiting for his party, the Lib Dems, to come up with a party leader. And I think, Alan, we have a video of none other than Pierre Poilievre, who is the Canadian opposition leader, conservative, and a Quebecois, who is waiting in the wings, les curtains, to go ahead and maybe take advantage of Trudeau's departure.
On the topic, I mean, in terms of your sort of strategy currently, you're obviously taking the populist pathway.
What does that mean?
Well, appealing to people's more emotional levels, I would guess. I mean, certainly you tap very strong ideological language quite frequently.
Like what?
Left wing, this and that, right wing. I mean, it's that type of ideological spectrum.
I never really talk about left or right.
Anyways, I don't
really believe in that.
Okay. A lot of people would say that you're simply taking a page out of the Donald Trump book.
Like which people would say that?
Well, I'm sure a great many Canadians, but...
Like who?
I don't know who, but...
Well, you're the one who asked the question, so
yeah.
You must know somebody.
Boy, the apple was really deployed well in that.
You know those high school newspaper reporters. I mean, they really work hard. Damn. So here's Trudeau, who actually did go down to Mar-a-Lago very shortly after the election to kiss the ring, worried about the possibility of 20. It's a metaphor, Barb, and it's still a PG show.
Melania was down there.
Oh, yes. Okay. So when the week that was 10 p.m. edition reconvened, we can talk about that with the right music in the background. But I mean, the threat of 25% tariffs against Canadian companies and Canadian imports to the United States. I mean, this must have played a role, along with what had been a fairly hemorrhaging level of support for Trudeau for at least the last 5-6 years. Any thoughts? Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that is obvious, and his inability to get Trump to back off anything, I think, cinched it. I think that there was, I was embarrassed for Trudeau that he went and did this in Mar-a-Lago, but looking back at it, I think it was his last best effort to try and save his position and maybe his country. I mean, I think Trudeau doesn't want the right wing to take over in Canada, nor does he want to become the 51st state. But there wasn't much he could do. I mean, Trump was never going to try and help Trudeau. I mean, what happened was completely predictable. Sorry, Alan.
I was going to say, it's interesting about wanting Canada to be the 51st state. It's like, hey, your gun violence is like way too low. Be part of America. It's like the costs are too low. Be part of America. Come on. And by the way, the 51st state should be Washington, D.C. You have about 700,000 residents there they have one delegate, Eleanor Holmes Norton, who has the ability to vote in committee but can't vote on the floor. They have no Senate representation. They have a bigger population than at least a couple states in this country that each have two senators.
And Alan, what do you think the odds are that Trump will support the idea that a solidly Democratic area should become the 51st state?
Oh, 100%.
Well,
you know what? When Clinton left and Bush took over, the White House limousines had the license plate taxation without representation. When Bush came in, took those off. I mean, it's disgusting that but more than 90% vote Democratic in presidential elections in DC.
So
I
Alan,
happen
do you think
to agree completely with Alan. I don't think it's going to happen in the Trump administration, but I completely agree.
Alan, do you think that effective January 21st, the license plates will say "Be Best"?
Well, can I say something about Little Miss? Speaking of Be Best, did anybody notice Melania yesterday looked like she was smelling her husband's diaper for that whole?
Wow.
She looked angry. She looked just pissed. She didn't comb her hair. Anything. She's not coming back.
That might explain why Michelle wasn't there and why Obama caught COVID before showing up. But the long variety. Well, speaking of tariffs, there's also this whole idea about how the United States, I think, has now declared China to be the existential threat. The Pentagon has blacklisted a Chinese EV battery manufacturing company, but one that has ties to both Tesla and here locally to Ford, saying that it is a national security risk. I don't think that it has called for the nullification of contracts between Tesla and Ford, but that certainly could be a spillover of the fact that the Pentagon has issued it to be company non grata. Is this where we're kind of heading, and particularly when it comes to the whole idea of having a larger market, consumer market of electric vehicles?
I think the distrust between, there was a period where we really wanted to do business with China, but the distrust, I mean, they've stole a lot of intellectual property. They continue to do that. The distrust is so great. In Washington, when they were building a new embassy, they brought in their own workers to do it because they didn't trust that the U.S. wouldn't be planting little whatever things in there.
Yeah, but Alan, I mean, other countries have stolen intellectual property. I think the Beatles ripped off the Isley Brothers and Little Richard. I mean, we're not
James Taylor.
Invading,
they stole one of the James Taylor songs.
We're not invading the UK, are we? But well, on a more serious note, though, we have in the Los Angeles area probably no fewer than 6 different wildfire conflagrations occurring. Thousands of acres have burned, thousands of homes. Estimates now place the destruction at about $150 billion. And it seems as though containment is still elusive. A lot of politicization. President-elect Trump went on Truth Social and said that Governor Gavin Newsom, whom he calls Gavin New Scum. So I guess maybe it's not just bodies of water that are renamed for Trump. But the fact that this is the issue, that we're looking at the buck stopping at various places. The mayor of Los Angeles apparently was on a diplomatic trip prearranged to Ghana and has been catching flack for that. The person in charge of filling up the hydrants, because of course one person fills each hydrant up separately, is being impugned. I mean, is this just, unfortunately, the new normal, that instead of facing the reality that the Santa Ana winds have increased because of climate change, we're going to look for other boogeymen and golems? Joel?
First of all, the devastation is apocalyptic. It's incredible. I watched BBC this morning that had live film. It is just terrifying. I have family near LA, and it was Casablanca, whatever that place is, not Casablanca, whatever it's called,
Calabasas.
Thank you. And they're terrified. Yes, and they're terrified. They're getting ready to leave. I mean, it's a terrifying thing. But I think it's human nature that whenever there's anything bad that happens, we look to blame. We look to point fault. It's it's what we do as human beings. And the hope is that we learn from those mistakes that were made. It's easy to politicize this. This is an unmitigated catastrophe and just an awful event. How responsible any governmental agency is, I don't know. I know that there were cutbacks, according to the press, in the fire funds that were given. I think 17 million or so were cut. So there'll be political recriminations, but the amount of devastation is absolutely, I've never seen something like this. It is, are they ever going to build it back? How long is it going to take to build it back? Are people going to get insured? I'm just thinking, if I had lost my house, God willing, I had a house somehow I'll be able to lose, is it going to be covered? I mean, all these people, I just think it's god awful.
Well, I think on the budget, Joel, from what I understand, that money was not cut; it was actually rediverted toward the police budget.
Wonderful.
So again, I mean, the whole idea that there are criticisms for being not tough on crime, and then when the money is moved there, it's like a balloon. You squeeze one end, and the other end gets bigger, etc. And that seems to be going on. But yeah, for those people who are out there certainly thinking about what they've lost, and certainly also thinking about animals, it's just incredible how many animals are being reported to have been burned, severely injured, and of course, pictures of bear and other wildlife that have really suffered. Bill, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, we have my stepson, Joni's son, lives in LA. One of Joni's sons lives in LA, and he has sent terrifying pictures out of his bedroom window of the bright red sky. He appears to be in a safe area, but it's incredible. I want to point out a couple of things. One is, I agree with what Joel said. There's going to be public and political incriminations about everything that went wrong. However, this is devastating. These pictures are horrific. Miles and miles of houses decimated, gone, neighborhoods, cities that no longer exist.
Yeah.
I want to say two things. One is, I'm proud of how people have focused on the fact that while they've lost all their possessions, they're happy that they've saved the people in their lives.
Right.
And that there's been a uniting of the country around helping these people, which I find to be heartwarming and encouraging. I invite everyone, however, and I'm going to get some blowback on this, but it's okay, to compare the pictures of what these neighborhoods look like in LA and the pictures of what happened in Gaza. One's man-made, the other is not.
Yeah.
The decimation, the destruction are exactly the same. No one is rallying around the people, the innocent people of Palestine, to help them. I'm glad we're doing it in LA, but no one is doing what needs to be done to help the innocent victims of what happened in Gaza, even with the same destruction. And I think we've got to look at ourselves and ask, why is that true?
We have an affirmation bill from a viewer, Faris Khan, who apparently moved to San Diego County from Michigan. Hope you're safe there. It looks like, at least for now, the wildfires have not spread further south than even Orange County.
His name's Faris. It tells me something about his ethnic background. I'm sorry. I appreciate it, Faris.
Or the fact that, it's his day off. But the fact that reminding us that LA County has a larger population than 40 states.
Yeah.
So we're also looking at a tremendous area. Alan.
Two friends. One friend, him and his wife, sat in their driveway for hours waiting to see if they were going to be evacuated. Another friend I was talking to last night suddenly said, "Oh shit, they got a warning that they might need to evacuate." It ended up being a false warning for a lot of the area, but everyone's on edge, and it's the devastation. I've never seen it. I guess to me, it's just so puzzling in the 21st century that there aren't better ways to fight fires, to contain fires. It's just so kind of
you can get ticketed in Los Angeles for having dried brush in your yard. I mean, they're pretty proactive about trying to, building fire breaks and all that stuff. But ultimately, this is a desert. It is a desert, and we have populated it by diverting water to it to make it bloom and beautiful and the climate is spectacular, and you go out there and you think, geez, why don't I live here? But then it's a desert, and the wind blows out of, these Santa Ana winds blow in the winter and the fall out of the east, and it's just, did you see? I saw a picture last night of a short video of McDonald's. It was like outside of McDonald's, where they have the low sign and the greenery and all that stuff around it, and the wind was just. It was like 90 miles an hour. I mean, that's like a
hurricane force winds.
There are a number, Nancy. There are a number of law firms that are looking at class action lawsuits against the power companies out there for hanging power lines, because most of these fires have been caused by power lines that come down in the Santa Ana winds and spark the fire, and it takes over. And there's always been a lot of question about why are they hanging them up in the air rather than burying them in the ground, which would be far safer. And I think we're going to see a lot of litigation about what caused this fire, what did they know about these issues, and why did they choose to ignore the alternatives.
Well, as Bill, as one of our viewers said, that looks like they arrested somebody who started, I would argue, a fire. The fact that these are occurring in many different locations, I don't think arson explains all of them, as also clearly the power lines don't. But it seems as though there is one convergence, which seems to be climate change, which nobody really wants to talk about, which has exacerbated the Santa Ana winds.
Well, they're not going to. I mean, that's the other thing that is so despairing. It makes me despair about the next 4 years, because first of all, Trump is going to he's going to pull all kinds of shenanigans to claim that, California doesn't deserve more federal relief because they didn't vote for him, and fuck you, we're going to send it all to Texas the next time they have a cold snap. I mean, that's going to be part of it, because that's the only way he knows. I mean, I will miss Biden's essential decency, the way that he says we're all Americans, we help each other.
Well, Nancy, there's Texas and then there's Texas. So,
I have a video, speaking of decency.
Former Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz said in a new interview that he is, quote, starting to think about running for governor of Florida. Well, you'll have some pretty weird shoes to fill.
Oh, I can't unsee that.
That guy looks worse and worse, man. He's becoming who he is. He's growing in, his face is growing into his detestable personality. It's wonderful to see.
Well,
rectangular thing, love it.
He ordered the full Wayne Newton at his plastic surgeons.
That's going to happen. Yeah, and he's got the eyes
it's
eyeballs,
happened.
It'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
But
you can see the progression of his face.
Yeah.
He's
growing into the complete asshole that he is, and Trump is just a fucking brutalist. I mean, that's just the reality. The guy's a fucking brute, and that's what he's gonna fucking. That's what he does. He's a fucking brutalist.
Exactly.
I do real fast. I want to say I agree with what Bill said so much, and it's really, you can't stop looking at the difference between the two things. We're all wringing our hands over what's happening in California, and it's true. The people that are trying to rally around Palestine also are being vilified as being anti-Semitic and as being ignorant and not knowing. And I think that this is the inaction down there is one of the most maddening things. And the only common thing is Jose Andres has been on the ground at both places right away. That man has people cooking in LA County right now, and they were in Palestine until it just became too dangerous for them. But
I think Barb, how the discourse has changed. I mean, right now, James Woods, the actor, who rightfully got his ass kicked in a good casino. He's going on CNN and he's crying. He lost his house and all. Which is terrible. But the internet is blown up because 15 months ago he was calling for Gaza to be bombed into the Stone Age, and he said "kill them all" as his hashtag. And so there's something unfortunately karmic in the response that people seem to be having. Before we go to the last section, Alan.
I want to say I don't disagree that what's happening in Gaza horrific. I mean, even Gallant, the defense minister, had argued for months and months and months that the fighting should have stopped. The one thing that sometimes gets lost in there is that Hamas, I think it's a contest between who cares less about the people, Hamas or Netanyahu. I mean, they're both extremists. They're both horrible sides, and I think that gets lost sometimes in the whole vision. But I don't disagree with what you guys are saying, but I think sometimes.
But I wasn't talking about Hamas, Alan. I was talking about the victims. I was talking about the innocent Palestinians. You know, the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who have nothing to do with either side, who have been killed, who have lost their homes, who have been decimated, who have moved 10 times. You know, there is a Seikaly who we at one point got out of Gaza, and he said, I can't leave the kids that were there. He moved back. It have nothing to do with either side of this. But tell me what the world is doing to stop either.
Nothing.
Hamas, either crazy, because I agree with you, Alan. They're both nuts. Sure. But what's the world doing to stop either one of them and protect these innocent people?
Nothing.
Not a goddamn thing.
Nothing. And what's amazing to me is that what's going on in Gaza is really not front page anymore. You know, there could be a horrific killing of children, of women.
None of that is front page anymore, Joel.
Right. And so
not Lebanon, not Syria, except of course you do have to focus on Hezbollah being involved on January 6th, according to the press conference.
Right.
So something to consider. Well, the last segment I do before we go to our last segment, the Detroit Lions have now clinched home field advantage in the number one seed throughout the playoffs. They have earned themselves a bye this week. So I have to tell my mom, no, don't go looking for it with your lantern of Diogenes. It's not happening this week.
So nice
because she's really gotten into American football, and I'm love you, Mom, for that. Which I mean, look, there's certain horsemen of the apocalypse, but that one wasn't one that I had predicted as a sign. But it looks like at least the spring in the step here in Motown is great. So again, go Lions for whatever destiny you have in mind, Alan.
I was going to say the defense played phenomenally. Nobody expected after last week's game, previous week against San Francisco, where the defense, particularly in the first half, was non-existent. For them to come back. And I think Alex Anzalone returning and being able to call plays on the defense as a captain, I think helped quite a bit.
And it looks like we might get David Montgomery back in time. And so, you know, I know we go to our last segment, but let me go ahead and say that my MVP for the week, my Mensch valuable player, actually not even a player, a person, I should say, is Coach Dan Campbell, because at the end of the game, he goes over to the Minnesota head coach and says, I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
what a class act. So so definitely one for the book. All right, Alan, let's go to the last segment.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
Okay, Bill, let's go.
Wow. I have one personal one. I was involved in a thread discussing January 6th and the importance of remembering it. And a very sweet woman by the name of Kelly Sherry Howe Music not only called me an idiot, she was probably right on that one, but she called me a libtard. I'm still trying to figure out what libtard means, but
Bill, I believe that's a portmanteau.
But I mentioned to her that I had taught 7th grade for a period of time, and that sounded a lot like what my 7th graders used to say. So
you must have taught at a very political middle school there, Bill.
Well, no, they used to use the term retard a lot because I was involved in special education. I found that term to be very offensive, and kids found out how I felt about that the hard way. They spent a lot of time. They spent a lot of time volunteering in special ed classrooms as a result of their opinions, and I changed almost all of their minds about that because
you built empathy. Good for you. Good for you.
And my other, and I think I've done this now 3 weeks in a row, is everybody who is now kissing the rear ring. Everybody get that reference?
You mean a sphincter? The sphincter?
The sphincter ring of Donald Trump. This turn to the right that this country has taken is dangerous. It will go down as in the history books, in my opinion, in one of two ways: as a very dark time, or the beginning, maybe not the beginning, but the beginning of the real end of this experiment of democracy and of the republic. When Benjamin Franklin said, "What do you have? We have a republic if we choose to keep it."
Yeah.
And I think we may be choosing not to keep it at this point. This is the most dangerous time I think I've ever seen. I know I've ever seen, but even read about in our history. I think that in the next few months, we're going to see troops and trucks, military trucks in the streets, picking up people. And it's going to be like no time we've ever seen. And the question is, how everyone, each and every one of us, going to respond to that?
Yeah.
We have Faraz Khan saying that the Detroit Lions are America's team, that Dallas has handed off the crown to Detroit. Jared Goff chants happily globally now. Yes.
I love this Ferris guy. I love this guy for a bunch of reasons. But on this one, he's wrong. The fact of the matter is if you look around, Kansas City gets all this praise from everybody. They get the national advertisers, everybody, and Detroit just gets mentioned.
No, we need a pop star to date somebody on the team.
But despite that, we will say save Faris. So okay.
Allstate commercials for our Lions.
Okay.
Well, no, but we have all those Bernstein law firm ads.
Those are local. Barb. Those are local. Big difference.
Barb.
You guys, I don't know if you've noticed from my discussions on these, but I really haven't got a single solitary fuck to give about sports. Any sports, all sports. So I'm happy. I'm really happy for you guys because you're happy. I think yay. But it goes too far. We don't know how to stop. Michigan has this, or the Detroit area has this need to have celebrity. I think Nancy pointed it out last week when Allan,
yeah.
So some nitwit in Royal Oak, a business owner who I understand is a MAGA, by the way, wants to change Campbell Road to Dan Campbell Road. Now I pay my taxes for a lot of silly shit, and it's all right. I'm all right. It's fine. But this is really, and I'm a person that rides my bike past Glen Fry Street all the time in front of the old high school.
High school there, sure.
So he's from Texas, though. I mean, Glen Fry is at least from Royal Oak.
Can I just ask where's the schmuckery here? Because I do want to kind of recenter
this. The schmuckery is this guy, and any Royal Oaker that goes, "That's a great idea."
Okay.
All right. Out of control.
Like this is
but Barb, I mean, we do this here in Detroit. I mean, we named a road after an M&M movie. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Oak Park, I think, has Al Kaline Drive.
That's different. Al Kaline's my exception.
He's deserving, man.
But again, he's from there. I mean, what's going to happen if, say, the best happens and Campbell wins the Super Bowl, and it's like, Hosanna, woo, it finally happened. And then some other team comes along and, backs a dump truck full of $100 bills up to his house and hires him away. What are you going to do about Dan Campbell Road then?
Nancy, I think Barb's got a point. If the Lions win the Super Bowl, we're going to rename the town Dantroit. Let's see. All right, Joel.
I'm going to go with Mark Zuckerberg. Again, following Bill's line. Jesus Christ, man. I mean, you have enough money to laugh 1,000 lifetimes. You're going to bend to this asshole. It's absurd to me. and it bothers the hell out of me. He's my schmuck of the week. You know, he's awkward, he's strange, he's odd, and making these types of decisions is awful. It's just, again, you know, we're losing any independence of anyone. And we have people like Zuckerberg have all the power in the world. Bending is a terrifying thought.
So, Joel, are you saying that wouldn't all of this have been avoided if that one girl at Harvard would have just said yes to a date with him?
It would have. Absolutely. But, you know, he's a weird...
Isn't that the Franz Ferdinand moment?
Yeah.
Everything changed. But, but he's my schmuck of the week. He bothers the hell out of me.
Okay. Nancy.
Oh, I've got 1.5 today, actually. Well, let's just go right to it. Nolan Finley, who had preserved a shred of his dignity by being a never Trumper in 2016 and a nose-holding Republican over what's happened to the party as it's gone full MAGA, actually wrote a column this week where he chided the president-elect for being unfocused and silly in his ridiculous press conference. And he actually wrote, "The stream of consciousness flow of ideas and promises that marked Donald Trump's presidential campaign must now give way to deliberate, well thought out policymaking." To which I say, Nolan Finley, have you been asleep for the last 8 years? I mean, did you not see? We saw this movie once, okay? Yeah, exactly. Legal cannabis has finally found a home in the Finley home. But it's, what are you thinking that you think this is even a possibility coming from this man? So for that, I'm going to give him the schmuck. But then I also have to give an honorable mention to Edgar Madison Welch, otherwise known as the man who walked into Comet Ping Pong Pizza in Washington, D.C. in 2016 and fired some shots. He was looking for the children that were being trafficked in the basement, or that were being held in the basement before being trafficked through Hillary Clinton's evil network.
Pizzagate.
And there's no basement in that place.
There's no basement, exactly. He was convicted of something, and he served, I believe, 4 years in prison. He was out until in the last couple of days he was shot to death by some police after he apparently drew down on them during a traffic stop in North Carolina. So he is now reaching room temperature, and so no more Edgar Madison Welch. And
Actually, I think, Alan, there was a basement, but it got cemented up because it went straight to P. Diddy's mansion in LA. So
I lived 2 blocks from that place, and it was funny. It was just
they have good pizza. That's all I want to know from you.
Yeah, it's a casual little, a cool little pizza joint. And then when I came back to visit after that incident, they suddenly had a security guard in there. It was just insane.
But also magically, wasn't everybody working there now over the age of 21? Overnight? Alan.
First of all, Steve Fishman, who ended up not being able to make it, he wanted me to say his schmuck of the week is Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, who left Los Angeles on a Saturday as the winds were blowing and as this threat was happening. And she went to see the swearing in of the Ghanaian president. And so she didn't return to she was gone for 5 days. She came back to a burning city. So that is his schmuck of the week. Mine is Gretchen Whitmer, who has decided that she is not going to endorse her lieutenant governor because she's got too many friends who are out there. And to me, it's he may end up, he's expressed interest in the job, but he could end up running for mayor of Detroit. But where's the loyalty of saying, this is my running mate for 6 years? If he runs, he's got my endorsement. And she's saying, oh, no, Jocelyn Benson's done a great job. And I just think it's bullshit. I think she's trying to, I think she loses some points.
I want to endorse Alan on that, but for a slightly different reason. I was more offended by her inability to call out Mike Duggan for running as independent.
Yeah. Right.
That I found
this is going to be, Michigan traditionally goes back and forth between the parties. 8 years as a Democrat, 8 years as a Republican. That's been the pattern for the last 30 or 40 years. Yeah, forever. So, I mean, the odds are already against the Democrats. But they do have the advantage of there being a really terrible, there's no Republicans out there that are really capable at this point anyway. I mean, Tudor Dixon, give me a break.
Bring back Christina.
That apparently had no impact on the presidential election.
Yeah, yeah, I know. But for him to run as an independent, oh my God, that's just such.
I think Gilchrist should run in Michigan 13 against Tree.
The world's tallest man.
He would win.
Yeah,
he could win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's where the recruitment should be.
Right.
All right. Well, my schmuck of the week is actually the Biden administration, which has successfully been able to block the guilty plea proceedings of 9/11 mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. He who has been perfectly willing now to admit that he orchestrated the entire thing, planned everything out back in 2001. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who was a longtime denizen of Gitmo, but also various CIA black sites, had everything waterboarded out of him. And yet the government seems to still say, lo these 23 years later, that these guilty pleas would be against the national security interest, which really makes you wonder what the hell this whole thing has been about. And what they're worried about that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed might say during the sentencing proceedings to give up the ghost. So in the interests of an administration that claims to be about the rule of law, which I'm sure that both on international fronts as well as domestic is a little bit specious, yeah, I would say that the Biden administration has shown their schmuckery on this particular case.
I agree with that. It's so puzzling that our country, in some ways, it's like the JFK. I think there's still documents in the JFK assassination which are still under seal. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Didn't Trump say he was going to release everything when he became president?
Oh, really?
Another broken promise.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well,
No,
there we go.
All right.
Not the last time, this time.
Well, as they say, Barb, this could be the last time. I don't know. Anyway, thank you all for joining us out there in the audience. By the way, I do want to make one statement. There is a lot of there are a lot of health issues out there. People with norovirus, of course, COVID, flus. I know people both near and dear and otherwise who are really suffering out there. Please get well. Please take care of yourself. It is not a joke. We want you healthy. We want you happy out there. So please do what you can to take care of yourselves. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Nancy. And I don't think anyone's going to be prematurely exiting today. Go figure. And with the final word and thanks, Allan.
Drive home safely.
Take care, everybody. Have a